Yeah, so the other day I was looking through some old interview footage and I found this really cool Zoom session I did with two of the greatest drummers from hard rock and metal. They actually both played for two of the most iconic rock singers ever. Some great stories in here, including an inside story about an 80s rock masterpiece that's been severely misunderstood due to the embellishment of the 80s Satanic Panic. They actually did this experiment together, this drummer and this iconic singer, where they put a hidden message in a song to prove that the media and the naysayers were lying about backmasking. Some great interviews coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you ever had to hide your tapes or your CDs from your parents due to a parental advisory sticker or because they had questionable content, you're going to want to subscribe below to this channel of musical nostalgia. Make sure to click the bell so you always know when our new interviews are coming out. Also, check out our Patreon. We have a new documentary up there and new content. That helps us to do more interviews and keep the videos coming. So it's time for another episode of our series, Revelations. This is where featured artists reveal rare stories about their greatest songs and greatest albums. You know, when I was growing up, I discovered hard rock and heavy metal. And that discovery was both exhilarating and a little bit scary. It was scary because there was so much fear around Satanic Panic. I've talked about it before here. So many rumors about metal and hard rock bands and their alleged ties to the occult. I can't tell you how many times I heard that KISS stood for Knights in Satan's Service, or that AC/DC stood for Antichrist Devil Cult, or that Ozzy Osbourne's classic song Crazy Train was about riding with Satan down to hell. None of which of these are true. KISS came from the fact that Paul Stanley had the idea one day when Peter Criss said that he'd been in a band called Lips, and the S's were meant to resemble lightning bolts. It was all marketing. AC/DC, that was named after Angus and Malcolm when they spotted the letters AC/DC on their sister's sewing machine after the electric currents. And actually, Crazy Train is about the Cold War. I could talk about that for a while, but that's a story for another day. For the most part, Satanic Panic was a complete myth built on the foundations of assumptions and really unsupported suspicions that, to be fair, many of the bands and artists embraced after they were accused of it, for commercial appeal, sell more records. Most of it was 80s fake news, if you will, especially when it came to Dio's Holy Diver. Holy Diver, you've been down too long in the midnight sea. I think parents heard the music, they looked at the album covers, and they made a snap judgment that simply didn't match up with the facts. Again, I'm not saying all, some of it was there. This is also the time where you had role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, and Lord of the Rings, the animated film, had come out in the late 70s, which popularized the books thereafter. I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of heavy bands like Zeppelin and Sabbath and Ozzy Solo and Dio resonated with me and other 80s kids, because these bands had deep roots in fantasy. Dio's Holy Diver was definitely a product of this fantasy. Dio had that when he was with Sabbath, really. The themes of madness and desolation. I mean, Dio read a lot of Sir Walter Scott, Arthurian tales and science fiction. He did all this when he was a little boy, and he used fantasy lyrics in his early 1970s band that was once called Elf. Dio once said in an interview that his influences came from his youthful reading. He said exactly, and I quote, "When I became a songwriter, I thought, what better thing to do than to do what no one else is doing, to tell fantasy tales. Smartest thing I ever did." End of quote. Holy Diver, it's been misinterpreted since day one by overly cautious parents and zealots. Its meaning has been debated by metalheads really since its release. Dio himself refused to elaborate on its true meaning, though. Dio has said the lyrics are about a Christ-like figure on another planet who sacrifices himself to redeem his people. When the people learn that he intends to leave them to save people on other planets, they selfishly ask him to stay. The album cover that depicts a demon-like figure drowning a priest, that's also been overtly misinterpreted. Dio did at times suggest that the artwork doesn't actually depict the demon named Murray drowning a priest, but maybe a priest drowning the monster. Many have interpreted this as Dio implying that the priest is the evil one in this scenario, possibly guilty of corruption or pedophilia or something like that. There's always been more than meets the eye with 80s music. Sorry, I had to do the Transformers there. On this episode of Revelations, though, we focus on the stories behind the recording of Holy Diver, memories of Ronnie James Dio, along with a good Ozzy story for good measure. It's a cool Zoom session with the Appice brothers, drummers Carmine and Vinnie. Carmine, the eldest, was a co-founder of early psychedelic rock band Vanilla Fudge. He's also played with the power trio Beck, Bogart, and Appice. He's also played with Rod Stewart, Ozzy Osbourne, King Cobra, many more. He's actually co-written a lot of hits, a couple with Rod Stewart. Vinnie, who actually uses a different pronunciation on his last name, he's worked with John Lennon and Rick Derringer, and then he took over when Bill Ward quit Black Sabbath, and then he left with Ronnie James Dio to form Dio, playing on those first 5 classic albums, including Holy Diver. So we're getting somebody who was right there. As we go into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. Today I'm wearing my blue pair. Make sure to go to zenni.com and design a pair of glasses, sunglasses, or even blue blocks. You can see how you look before you buy through their 3D virtual try-on. You can get all this for up to 80% off regular retail prices. Just click on the info button right here to get a special POR deal. Vinnie, you and Dio left Sabbath in 1982. What led to that departure? Was that a tough decision to leave Sabbath? Tell me about that time, if you don't mind.
Well, at that time, the band, I'm talking about Ronnie, Tony, and Geezer, they weren't seeing eye to eye. They weren't getting along that well. Nothing musical. And then Ronnie always had a solo deal from Warner Brothers on the side. And the first thing he wanted to do was do a solo album with a whole bunch of friends and different people guesting on the record. But when things turned a little sour with Sabbath, he decided, well, I'm going to put a band together and do my own band. I got a record deal, and it's a great springboard to launch a career of my own. So he approached me, he said, I'm going to leave the band, and would you like to join me? And you know, I love Tony and Geezer. I love the music. I love Ronnie. I'm the guy in the middle. But I thought it would be easier to work with Ronnie. We were both in California. We got along really well, and it would be exciting to start something new with such a great singer. So I decided to stay with Ronnie, and I called Tony and Geezer and told them. But it was a difficult decision, obviously. I mean, it's 2 pretty big things, and that's how we started. And it was just me and him at the rehearsals for the very beginning. He played bass, and that's how it worked,
You worked on 5 great albums together, including one of the greatest heavy metal records ever recorded in Holy Diver. Tell me about that, 1983 Holy Diver.
Well, Holy Diver we did at Sound City Studios, like the Dave Grohl movies, that's the studio. And we rehearsed there because they had a U-shaped building, and on one side was rehearsal, the other side was the recording studio. So we'd go in the rehearsal side, and we were there for about 2 months, and we wrote songs. We were there every night at 7 o'clock. And all we did, we would jam and write songs. We smoked a lot of pot, and they would drink Jim Beam, bourbon and Cokes, and it was like a boys club. And we'd destroy the place. We had, anybody wanted candy, we just smacked the machine on the wall until it dropped all the candy out. We just put holes in the walls, and they let us do anything there. It was really cool. And then when we were ready, we even did, the guy in the front office of the rehearsal place, Brett Newman was his name.
Brett, yeah.
And he had the whole little office with a lamp, a phone, a TV, the papers, the desk, the chair. And we asked him, hey, Brett, can you go get us some beer down at the corner there, you know? He goes, yeah, what do you want? And we give him money, and he'd go. And when he left, we put his whole office out in the parking lot with the light on it. This was at night. The light was on. The exact same thing out in the parking lot.
Oh, he never told me that. That's funny.
Oh, yeah. And then we'd run inside, lock the door, and rehearse. You know, I told him to leave the beer outside. And then he'd have to put it all back. And then one time the Fudge were rehearsing there. And we took a break, and I said to Ronnie, let's put all the cases up so they can't get out. So we did that, too. We put all the cases, we all got out, piled them all the way up to the ceiling so they couldn't get out of the room. They would go to the bathroom. So we left them there. So that's the kind of vibe was going on. And when we jammed, it was like, yeah, that's cool, man. We play it. Ronnie get up and start singing some melodies off the cuff, you know. It was that loose, you know, and that's how we put those songs together because it was a lot of fun. It was a great vibe, a lot of fun. Then when we were ready, we lifted everything up, you know, like cymbals on a stand. We didn't break anything down, and we rolled everything across to the studio, and we recorded the songs there. But our friend Angelo, who was our sound guy in Sabbath, he came along with this project, and he became the engineer for Holy Diver. He recorded everything for the next 3 or 4 albums. But there were things that went on, like we had a Tascam recorder, 4-track cassette, and we'd play something one night and go, man, that's really cool, record it. And then, yeah, we were smoking a lot of pot and everything. Next night we come in, we're smoking pot. We go, Angelo, play that riff we have. We want to work on it. So he puts it in backwards. So the riff played backwards. So now we start goofing on him because he's stoned and he put the thing in wrong, and we're all sitting here listening to it. But then after about a couple seconds, we go, wait a minute, that's pretty good. And we said, yeah, that is good. So we took that riff, we learned it backwards. And we put it with the frontwood riff, and it's a song called Invisible on the Holy Diver record. So we were open for anything, you know. One time, I don't even know if you know this, Carmine, we were recording, so my drums are in front of the glass, facing Ronnie singing and Vivian and Jimmy. And Carmine comes in the control room, and Ronnie goes, we finished for a minute, and he goes, look behind you. And I look, and there's Carmine. Then I told Ronnie, I said, that's cool, look behind you. So it's on the record.
Wow.
Mixed
I didn't
in.
know that. Yeah.
Look behind you. And it's in one of the songs. and then we said, with Sabbath, Ronnie and I with Sabbath, they go, everybody accused the band of putting backward shit on there and go kill yourself and the devil's going to come out and all that. Everybody kept bringing that up. So I told Ronnie, I said, why don't we put something backwards on Holy Diver and see what they say? So on the last song on the album called Shame on the Night, the fade out, all of a sudden this voice comes on and goes, right? And what it is Ronnie said, crucify the diver, and we put it backwards. Mixed it into the song you could hear it. And nobody said fucking shit. Nobody knew, you know? So when you did it, nobody said anything. When you didn't do it, people are assuming these guys are totally evil. Some backward shit on there.
Right.
So you're in there, Carmine.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He said, look behind you. Like, oh, shit, what's behind me? I don't know.
Yeah, big brother.
So that's the way that album was put together. Then we recorded 4 tunes, brought everything back, and did the whole thing again. And then when we were ready, we did the other 4 songs the same way. So it was just a lot of fun. We were just having a ball. We didn't think we'd make anything but a really good record. Nobody thought this is going to become a classic rock album and 40 years later still be selling. So that's what happened.
Holy diver, you've been down too long in the midnight sea.
And that it shows that everybody was happy and everybody was having fun. The music shows for it.
Well, let's transition into that, into the tribute. Let's talk about Ronnie James Dio. You know, Vinnie, playing with Sabbath, you forged a strong camaraderie with Ronnie. Besides his incredibly powerful voice, what separated in your mind Dio from other musicians that you've worked with?
I never played with any singer that's incredible, first of all. And also, for a singer, he was a nice guy, down to earth. As we all know, that's not always the that's not always the norm, you know.
That is right.
So Ronnie was like down to earth, and it was really a cool thing. Like you sit down and talk to Ron, and he was like another brother, you know, the other brother.
He was part of our family. He used to come to our Christmases and holidays and hang out with the family, and you know,
Come to my house and play poker with his parents and shit.
Yeah,
you know?
we would. I met him like before Vinnie. I met him like when I started.
When he was at the Rainbow, right?
When he was in Rainbow, yeah. And they asked me to join Rainbow. I knew him from those days. I think I met him when he was in Elf, when he was opening up for Deep Purple, because Deep Purple were good friends of ours, and when they played L.A. I believe they opened up for, and I met Ronnie back then. But you know, what separates Ronnie from other singers also is great lyricist. You know, great lyrics, melodies and lyrics were really great all the time.
Another thing a lot of people don't know is he never warmed up. He was backstage right before the show. I'd go to his dressing room and we'd hang out. There would be people there. He's having a drink, and then they come in and go, "Okay, we got to go." And we'd walk on stage. And usually singers warm up. Every other singer I play with try warm up some way or other, you know, some with tapes. Yeah. Even Ozzy warmed up. He had the vocal tape going. And
he did? Not when I was with him.
Yeah, well, later on he had the vocal tape going, you know, da-da-da-da-da, that kind of shit.
I did that for a minute, but you know, Rod Stewart never warmed up either, and Mark Stein from Vanilla Fudge has an amazing voice. Never warms up.
Yeah, but we were playing on 12. You know, and going out, starting with Mob. We were starting with Mob Rules, Tony Iommi with 3 stacks of amps all on, and Geezer with a wall. I mean, it's just, I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Carmine, you've called him. I've read that you've called him the best heavy metal singer ever. In your opinion?
I think so, yeah. I would think, because most of the heavy metal singers really can't sing, a lot of them. You know, especially those 80s guys, a lot of them can't sing. You know, I mean, Ronnie was a great soul singer, man. He was soul. He had soul, you know, because he grew up, he was in that age, you know, like my age, that, you know, we listened to rock, but we listened to soul music too.
Well, as you guys were saying that Ronnie was a friend of the family and spent Christmases together with you, went to your bachelor party, right?
Carmine. Oh, mine. That's right, he did. That's right.
And your wedding.
Yeah, one of them.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think is Ronnie's finest hour? What was a song or songs that you just think were
that first album, that whole first album, I think is finest.
Which first album?
Your first album. Oh. Holy Diver.
Yeah, that, and then if you look at the song Heaven and Hell, it's like, wow.
Great song.
Talk about epic, amazing.
Epic, that's what I mean, great lyrics, great melodies, you know?
Yeah.
No, the masters like Rod Stewart, great melodies, great lyrics all the time. Ronnie James Dio, great melodies, great. Like Ozzy, Bob Daisley wrote most of his melodies and lyrics. Yeah. And all those big albums, Bob Daisley wrote all that stuff. You know? So
it looks like you won't work with Ozzy again now.
Oh no, not anymore. I've been
Rod.
talking. Huh?
Maybe Rod. You said he was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Rod wrote the intro to my book, so I'm good friends with Rod again. You know.
No, that's good.
Last question for you guys. As brothers, what is your favorite performance by the other? Like Carmine, what is your favorite Vinnie performance? And Vinnie, what is your favorite Carmine performance?
One of my favorites for Vinnie is We Rock.
Yeah, We Rock.
I love We Rock. I love where he played it. Great fills, great concept, and the snare drum instead of just, regular playing. I could say that with that equal would Stand Up and Shout for me.
Yeah. And Carmine, this is going back, but the first appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show, totally animal on the drums.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that video is everybody that was on Ed Sullivan Show prior to that, like the Doors, Jefferson Airplane, the bass player and the drummer just played and sat there. You guys came on, and his sticks are going all over the place, arms in the air, playing, the floor tom and the snare together, and Timmy just killing it. Yeah. You guys killing it together. That's unbelievable, that stuff.
Yeah, it was.
And to this day, Carmine just kicks ass. He's still kicking ass.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Tell us your thoughts on Ronnie James Dio, Ozzy Osbourne, the metal classic Holy Diver, Carmine and Vinnie, two of the greatest drummers of our time. What are your memories of the Satanic Panic of the 80s? I'm not saying that it didn't exist in some form, but I'm saying it was pretty overblown. Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we would invite you to subscribe so that you can be a part of this daily and we can have great music conversations. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth matters.